Welcome to Generations, a show which helps people 50 and better lead happy, healthy, and productive lives. Here's your moderator for today's episode, Gloria Van Demeltrot.
Hello, and welcome to Generations. I'm Gloria Van Demeltrot. Co-hosting with me today are Karen Risette. Very happy to have you.
Thank you.
Great, good to have you with us. And Ellie Freed.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to talking with these women.
Wonderful. We have interesting guests today, Ms. Renate Sharp and Dr. Amanda Barnett. Renate, we're delighted to have you. We understand that you have come to the United States from Germany.
Yes, that is true. That was my mother's idea. She wanted to escape war-torn Europe. And she was looking forward to this country and peace. Her Christmas wish always was world peace.
Wonderful. We're glad to have you with us today. And Dr. Amanda Barnett, we're delighted to have you here. Dr. Barnett is from the University of Wisconsin-Stout.
Thank you for having me. It's really an honor.
Great, wonderful. Well, I think we have a delightful show today. We're going to divide our show today into a couple of different segments. First, we'll be interviewing our guests, starting with Renate Sharp and then with Dr. Barnett. And after that, we'll be including the whole panel for a conversation. So people will be asking questions as we go along as well. Let's start with Renate Sharp. We're delighted to have you, and we'd like you immigrated to the U.S. from Germany, as you mentioned. Can you tell us more about that experience? We'd like to know what happened there.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you so very much for having me. It's great to meet you all, and this is a wonderful country. It was very difficult initially because I was a teenager, and it was exciting in a way. It was difficult for my mother. She was older. And there were different customs, like religion. In Germany, when I was brought up in the Lutheran Church, I had never heard of synods, or at that time that you interpret the Bible literally, or that dancing is the downfall of women. And now I know better. Not all Lutherans believe that, or custom clothing. When I lived in Germany, bikinis were accepted, and so were shorty shorts. And when I came here, everyone wore Bermuda shorts and only one-piece swimsuits. And to a teenager or whatever. But that raised some questions, and I was awful, I think. But I've met so many wonderful friends and Americans, and yes, it's a great country. And you know what has also changed, though? When I came here, I think Americans did not criticize this country. And since Vietnam, Americans have become more, I don't want to say prone, but at least they feel at ease to criticize their own country.
How interesting. What a very interesting observation there. Yes. And speaking of that, you were also in the U.S. Air Force, Renate.
Yes, I was.
Unusual for women at that time. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, definitely. After Carleton, I felt that I wasn't really qualified to do anything. And so I applied to law school at the University of Minnesota and spent 3 years there, and they were formative years and very, very interesting too. And Carleton was great also, really. So I wanted to combine law and travel, and I joined the Air Force. Actually, I first applied with the Army, and the Army rejected me. They said I was not sufficiently military. And then a recruiter from the Air Force called me, and he said, we are the least military. And so I guess I could be a woman and a lawyer. And again, it was during the Vietnam War, but my duties did not really relate to the Vietnam War.
How interesting. You're involved in programs, we understand, including the European Christmas Market and the Humphrey Fellowship Program. As volunteer work, can you tell us more about those?
Let me start with the Humphrey Fellowship Program. When I was involved with it, it was at the University of Minnesota Law School, and also at the Humphrey Institute. Now it's all at the Humphrey Institute. It's a U.S. Department of State program that brings some 200 mid-career people from emerging countries here to the U.S., and they are spread out over maybe 12 universities, depending on their interest. And at the University of Minnesota, we got the human rights activists. And that was so heartwarming, really, and also humbling in a way, how many risks some of these people took and how hard they worked to spread human rights and to advance also women, in their own home countries.
Interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, the Christmas market. I'd love to tell you about that
the
too.
Christmas market.
Sure. There are various German-related organizations, and I was also very active in the Germanic American Institute. And then the Christmas market, like it is to educate the public, but also to bring a cultural program and show our shared heritage with Europe and this country. And a Christmas market in Germany, Austria, goes back more than 500 years, where artisans would bring their goods to town square, and people and families would congregate and socialize and drink, yes, hot spiced wine that may be an acquired taste, like a martini. But there's delightful food, and the emphasis is on handmade items, whether that time was baked bread and other foods, and now we have brats and potato pancakes and pierogies. And then handmade items, some toys, some sweaters embroidered, and we hope to get our glassblower back. So she accepted a corporate job.
It sounds like a very exciting event.
Yeah,
we'll probably talk more about that later.
Good.
I think we'll move right now to Dr. Amanda Barnett. We're delighted to have you, Dr. Barnett, and we'd like to ask you some questions or hear something about your background. You call yourself a first-generation college student, which is kind of intriguing. Not only did you stop at just being a college student, you went all the way to acquiring a PhD. Would you tell us more about that, please?
Yes. Well, a first-generation college student, many refer to that to being the first generation to go to college. So neither of my parents have a college degree, and the experience of being a first-generation college student and going to college is very different than someone who has parents that has gone to college. Where I'm at the University of Wisconsin-Stout, a lot of our students are first-generation college students. So I share that background with them, and helping them through that transition is a goal of mine. But what led me, my parents are always said I would go to college. There was always not a question of if, but when I would go to college and where I would go to college, and they were strong supporters. But as far as going out for my master's and my PhD, it was key mentors in my field that I met along the way who helped guide me onto that next step, whether it was my research or into my teaching, and where I ended up focusing my research and teaching and where I'm at right now.
Wonderful. I neglected, I'm sorry, Amanda, to mention your title. You have a very, very prestigious title. Dr. Amanda Barnett is an associate professor in human development and family services at the University of Wisconsin-Stout.
Yes, thank you.
Very impressive. Your field of research focuses on family science and family gerontology. Can you tell us more about this?
Sure. I think I'd like to start with why I got into this field, and it was during my master's program where I was trying to hone in on what I wanted to focus on with my research and teaching. And at that time, my grandmother's health started to decline, and my mom stepped up as her primary caregiver. And it was watching that process, the challenges, but joys as well, and the positive things that come out of caregiving, that made me realize I wanted to understand more about later life. and how to help families in that transition, and help elders have a dignified and good experience, and as well as caregivers, that we know it can be a really burdensome experience, but also understanding the positives. And so during my master's, I focused on grandparents raising grandchildren, but it was those events of my grandmother and the caregiving my mom provided that got me into the field more around family caregiving and decision making in later life, that families need to make a lot of important and challenging decisions as family members get older, and that it's not just an experience of one individual, but the entire family system, and how people can come together and make that as positive experience as possible. So my research is focused on how families make decisions around long-term care insurance and how to finance long-term care, looking at how adult children provide care to aging parents. I'm currently working on a textbook. It's the 3rd edition of Family Ties in Aging with Dr. Ingrid Kanitas out of Canada. And so that looks at the gamut of relationships that older adults might have, from intimate relationships to relationships with siblings to relationship with grandchildren and children. It could also include childless adults and adults that are single or never married. So a lot of different aspects to consider.
Can you tell us, you teach courses in late adulthood and cultural humility. Can you define cultural humility? I don't
Sure.
have a clue as to what that might be.
Sure. Well, in our field, my students are going out to work with people in many different ways. And so we teach classes on critical cultural competence, cultural humility, to help our students know and practice working on their own biases, stereotypes, assumptions, so that they might better be able to meet people where they're at, whatever background others might come from. And it's helping our students gain experience with people who have different backgrounds than themselves, so that they're just ready for really important work that they're going to do, whether it's in human services, human resource management, nursing homes, the full gamut. Yeah.
Wonderful.
I found that in hospice, I worked for the Minnesota Hospice Organization for a long time before I retired. And that was an issue in hospice because other cultures have a whole different set of guidelines around dying than we do.
Yes, and another key piece is we don't often think of age as culture, but it is. And in my late adulthood class, and as well as a class on cultural humility, is helping students understand their age biases and how they approach ageism in their own lives and in their professional lives as well. So in working in hospice or nursing homes, assisted living facilities, how do we approach working with older adults when we might be younger generations?
Oh, fascinating. Very interesting.
I could identify with that very much, because when I reached a retirement age and was transitioning into, away from paid work and into a lot of volunteer work, I went to the University of Minnesota and completed a certificate in vital aging advocacy. And it was just perfect. It was really, really helpful to understand all the aspects of things that you're talking about.
Yes.
And then they assigned us, a project that we could choose to explore all that. And I, with a group of people in the community, set up the Minnesota Creative Arts and Aging Network. And so I was able to continue through volunteer work, which I can identify with what you're talking about, volunteer work being so important. I could continue many things that I'd learned in my career life, my education and so on, but I did it as a volunteer. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Fascinating, fascinating. Can you tell us a little bit more about elder caregiving from your perspective?
Yes. Well, I think part of it I've said a little bit already, and oftentimes we focus on the challenges and the negative. And one thing that I think is exciting is in our field is that more people are focusing on what are the positive or what are the negatives and positives exist together. That at one time providing care to one of our loved ones, we of course feel maybe immense joy and love towards that person, but also maybe feeling burdened and challenged and feeling somewhat negative about the experience, and recognizing it in families, those feelings can exist together, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be just negative or just positive, glossing over that experience. And so that's something that I think I'm really taking away from the research that I'm reading, and how I approach teaching my students is how to not focus on just the negative or things as problems, or aging as a problem, but what about other aspects and how they might balance with that.
Renate, you took care of your aging mother here as well, didn't you?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that
Yes, I
experience?
did. I wanted to add that once a loved one is dead, it's too late.
That's right.
So we will never regret kindness. And I think I was really happy, and I had a very wonderful man who helped me too, and he's still with me. But it wasn't always easy to take care of a very strong mother whose mind, well, she suffered from some dementia. She was physically very strong. But I'm so happy that I could take care of her, that we lived together, and I'm really hat off to you for doing all that research and spreading the word that there are rewards in doing that. And I wish our culture would change a bit so that we don't just shove parents off to a home, but that it would be more accepted to have them in our own homes if they want it, And
I was working, I'm a hospice volunteer as well, Ellie, too, and we had an event all day yesterday at a place in Stillwater where they have a daycare, a children's daycare center, along with a retirement, assisted living, and nursing home facility. It was so wonderful. When I was there, the little children were having their music lesson. A woman was playing guitar, and they were all singing along and dancing and bobbing around, and it was just delightful. And some of the elderly people were sitting around in wheelchairs watching the children, and the children knew them. They would go up to them and shake their hands or say hello, but there was contact, relationships between them that were just delightful to see. And talking later with these people, that's something that apparently is being done in nursing homes throughout the country. Do you know more about that,
Yes,
Amanda?
I know there are some European countries, and I think it's Netherlands, has opportunities where college students can live for free in a nursing home or assisted living facility if they put in so many hours, not put in, but take hours out of their day to have dinner with elders and to engage in activities with elders. And so another way of bringing generations together. Research shows us that the more that younger generations are with older generations, the more positive views they have of aging and enjoy their aging process. And then elders can benefit emotionally, physically from those experiences too. So a lot of benefits all around.
I found, I took care of my parents and my husband's parents and my aunt and uncle before they died. And I can remember the positives, and I can also remember the negatives. So now I am the age that my parents were when they needed care. And I'm very fortunate to not need that. But that showed me how I need to I need to be to not make those negatives happen for my children. I think that was a good lesson that came out of all that caregiving. Yeah.
Excellent.
And you can't always help that. But as long as I can help it, I will.
Sure.
What kind of fields, Amanda, are your students going into related to elder care and that sort of thing?
Sure. Some of our students are going to work for aging and disability resource centers, so around the county level, and getting resources to families and individuals. Some of our students are life enrichment directors or activities directors at nursing homes, assisted living facilities. Those are the two, I think, primary paths that I see our students going into, but our students take this information and go so many different directions. I know students in my late adulthood course are planning to be human resource managers, and so they're thinking about how can I think about aging and my older workers, employees, in a better way, and be more supportive and understanding and whatnot. So I think it's really unique how students will take this information and bring it to their future careers in many different ways.
Interesting.
I came across something last night that really surprised me. We had a neighborhood gathering in a building, a condo building I live in. And one of our neighbors is 101 years old. She is a substantially active and engaged person. But I was having a bite to eat with her at this function, and she said, you know, I don't know why I'm still alive. And it was just enlightening to me because she's so active and so dynamic, and she walks many, many more miles than I do a week, you know, and she's been a successful career person at the top of her career. She's volunteered in politics and advocacy for different, you know, issues. And when I heard that, it really set me back a bit. And I said, Carol, you have to understand. I said, I had grandparents who lived to be 198. And let me tell you, all the way to the very end of their lives, they were such role models for me. And I said, that's what your mission is right now, as far as I can see, and would suggest to you, and to feel really good, because she was really feeling kind of down about.
That's a good way to respond to her.
Yeah.
Do you think she might be suffering from depression or something that you could suggest she look for some help?
There might be some opportunity for that. There are some other ways, you know, there are places, for example, that she doesn't want to go anymore because she can't hear as well. She always had theater tickets. She always had season tickets to everything. And she said, I don't go to those anymore. And, you know, that type of thing, to help her a bit.
I have a suggestion for you. They, at most of those places, Minnesota Orchestra has those little hearing things that you attach to your ear. Turn it on, you can hear everything. We have those at my church.
Do you?
They have them at theaters.
Yes.
So tell her about that.
That's a good suggestion, Ellie.
Yeah.
Oh, now, son, I think Amanda has some advice for us how to grow old healthy, not necessarily to grow indefinitely old, like 200 years, but as long as we are alive, to be healthy, right? Don't you want to share?
Oh, I don't know if I have all the tricks. But some of what I cover in my classes and what research supports is the decisions we make for ourselves earlier in life matter. But what we can do right now is exercise, eating healthy, taking care of our social lives, so staying socially active, and one of the things I think, to put away that idea of, well, I'm feeling this way because I'm getting older, to question, is it really because I'm getting older, or is it something that maybe I can get help with? So whether it's depression or whether it's my hearing loss, that could I get aids or some type of help with that? That not everything is just, well, that's the way it's going to be. And I think that can be a way to approach some of the aging as well. Yeah.
Great comment. Late life decision making. That's what we're dealing with. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Sure. Some of my what I focused on with my mentor at the University of Minnesota, Dr. Marlene Stem, was around long-term care financing. So how to finance long-term care, whether it's in your home or in a facility. Also, inheritance was also a focus of when to talk inheritance in a family. Is you do it earlier in life, later in life, wait for it to happen after someone's passed away, healthcare decision making, all of that. And so there's a lot there, but different types of decision making to help families with.
Renate, I'd like to hear about the European Christmas market before we end. I'm excited to go to that this year. I haven't heard about it before.
I look forward to seeing you there. Yes, the first 2 weekends in December, and it's based on the more than 500-year-old Christmas markets that started in Germany and Austria. We provide a replica of these authentic markets. So our market is really, it's cultural, it's educational, but it also is fun. It's a way for families and friends to meet, to socialize, to have something to to eat and drink, to look and admire artistic creations from handmade sweaters and Christmas ornaments, and also to observe and hear caroling, folk dancing as Santa. So yeah, I think it's a great way to start the holiday season.
It sounds wonderful.
How did this begin? How did the market begin?
When I still lived in Germany, I went to Christmas markets in Munich and also in Vienna. Munich has many, little neighborhoods have them, but the big one is right in front of Town Square with that terrific Rathaus, City Hall, and that's where the Christmas market started. Berlin has, I'm told, 53 Christmas markets, 4 big ones. So it's really part of the German culture and the Austrian culture. There's one in France, or more in France, in Paris, in Strasbourg. Scandinavia has some. There's even one in Shanghai, I'm told, and in Argentina, but where? I don't know. Anyway, so we'll have one in St. Paul with the traditional wooden huts out of which you can, where the creations, the artistic creations are displayed, and the food, and you can sample, and get ready for the holidays to surprise your family.
Have you
and
been
friends
involved with this
gifts.
since the beginning here?
This will be our 4th year, so we are really like a new kid on the block still.
But I'm sure you hope to keep it going
Yes.
year after year.
Yes, definitely. That is our goal, and to grow it, to have more entertainment, more folk dances. We had Norwegian ones. We hope to have Polish dancers, to have more artisans with their ceramics and pottery and glass blowing and knitting and doll making. Yeah, it's endless what there could be. But yeah, and the wooden kiosks, they are essential. Oh, and we'll have beautiful lit stars, the ambiance. It's
And
easy.
where will this be?
Union Depot in Lower Town on the East Plaza. It will be outside. There will be a warming tent. Spiced malt wine, that's a tradition, so to keep you warm. You can also have hot cider.
Our time goes so quickly, and I'm afraid it's gone for today. Thank you so much for being with us. Dr. Amanda Barnett and Renate Sharp, thank you so much for sharing your very interesting information with us today. Ellie, thank you so much for being with us.
I was delighted. Thank you.
Great. And Karen Rosette, thank you.
Thank you, because this is always just a really interesting program to be involved with, and
Isn't it
I
great?
appreciate it.
I do too. It's fun. We learn so much. Thank you, and we hope to see you next time on Generations.
Beverly's gonna wanna get some reaction shots,
Okay,
so stay in your positions.
Okay.
like that?
Really surprised? We're ready.
The tape was rolling, you might miss that one.